All
Okay,
right.
you're
All right. Tonight we got two debaters. Two debaters for tonight. First, before I introduce the debaters, let me go ahead and tell the people what's the title of the debate first on the information age. So the title of the debate is Was Margaret Sanger a racist who wanted to exterminate black people? Is this true or is it false? Tonight, we're going to know. So, our first debater, we got Steve Caballero. He will be on the side of. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us the people's side real quick, and then we can move on to the next debater.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Emac, and saying my last name correctly. Most people can't say Caballero. It's good to have a Latino, I guess. But my stance is that she was a racist, and that the objective was to exterminate Black people. So my name is Steve Caballero. I want to give a shout out to Ampu Crew, to Emac, Denise, Ivory Scales, the Information Age, Final Battle, Naga, the Gnosticism, and also Team Ma'at. Big up. Shout out to everyone.
Perfect, perfect. Now we're going on to Ratchet Craig, which y'all already know. Y'all already know. So, Craig, it's on you. Introduce yourself, bud.
What's up? What's up? This Ratchet Craig, and all the thing I'm gonna say is I'm here to prove that Margaret Sanger was not a racist. It did want to exterminate black people, and it's all this Steve head. And also, I'd like to send shouts out to everybody out there too, the listening audience, whoever came to attend. Uh, Denise for hosting this, the moderator EMAC, and of course my opponent Steve. Uh, and all the crews out there and the clans out there, man, from the bar method to everybody, man. I'm ready to get started. This was it. That was up right there.
All right, for if y'all don't know, please share and like the videos on YouTube, Facebook, the Information Age. Please share it. Please share it with the people. All right. So we're gonna be doing the first introduction round, which is 5 minutes apiece. They're gonna show you what they're gonna bring out for the debate, and we're gonna go start with Steve. I think he's the first one. So you need to share your screen.
Denise is handling that.
There
Thank
you
you, Denise.
go.
Okay, start my time now. Okay, my clock is on. Hi. So the title is Margaret Sanger, the racist who wanted to exterminate Black people. The introduction will be a definition and history of global eugenics movement and racism. The topics: shift in American culture and policy to promote single-parent households, weakening the family unit and those requesting benefits and social services. Prominent wealthy Caucasians supported Margaret Sanger, the mindset of scarcity. Notable Black people were and still are duped into accepting the extinction of their racial group. What happens? What happens to the aborted fetal stem cell tissue? Follow the money. Planned Parenthood distances itself from the name of Margaret Sanger, statistics and solutions, and then my closing. Um, Denise, I mean, I still have time on the clock. I can do a little background on the uh, the history of Margaret Sanger, but okay. So can I continue to use my time, host?
Yeah, you good.
Okay, thank you very much. Margaret Sanger, the racist who wanted to exterminate Black people. Introduction, definition, and history of global eugenics and racism. Original meaning of eugenics. It's ancient Greek, which means good, well, and coming into being or growing. The history of global eugenics movement. The term eugenics was coined in 1883 by Sir Francis Galton, the cousin of British explorer and naturalist and natural scientist Charles Darwin, who is the so-called father of the theory of natural selection. Eugenics advocates a system that allows the more suitable race or strain of blood a better chance of prevailing steadily over the less suitable. Now, when we talk about the suitable race or the strain of blood, we all know who we're talking about. That's the group that is more dominant, the group of people who controls the majority of global resources. So, in other words, the more suitable races, those would be the Caucasians or the white folks, and how they maintain their status of being so-called suitable is through genocide, war, colonialism, and imperialism. Who are the less suitable? Well, that's everyone else, the native people and the indigenous people. Eugenics was increasingly discredited as unscientific and racially biased during the 20th century, especially after the adoption of its doctrine by the Nazis in order to justify the treatment of Jews, disabled people, and other minority groups in Europe. So there's an image of Margaret Sanger over there, and it says, and these are her words. She's saying that colored people are like human weeds and are to be exterminated. The definition, so that was the definition of eugenics, an entire movement correlating to the global world wars, and also colonialism and imperialism. Then there's racism, refers to a variety of practices, beliefs, social relations, and phenomenon of social structure that yields superior power and privilege for some and discrimination and oppression for others. So we are familiar with the term racism. From the era of slave catchers to present, racism is institutionalized and upheld through the police state. In the current era, we know about Black Lives Matter and so on and so forth. My opponent admits that Margaret Sanger was a eugenicist, but by definition and etymology, aspects of the eugenics movement was also racist. Therefore, as a eugenicist, Margaret Sanger also subtly advocated for the extermination of groups and races of people deemed as inferior. So there, I just used etymology and I outlined what the eugenics movement was, as well as what racism is. And I'm saying that Margaret Sanger was a woman of color, a woman of privilege, a white woman of privilege. She wasn't the best white woman ever or the greatest white woman ever. She was a white woman of privilege, and subtly she was also attempting to bring about the extermination of all Black people and other minorities. That's my 5 minutes.
Oh, good introduction, Steve. Good. That's a lot of information now. Ratchet, Craig, that's on you. That's your introduction.
Microphone check.
Turn it up.
Yeah, microphone check. Let me go on to show these slides. Come on. Dang.
While you getting that, there won't be no judges for tonight, people.
Close your slides out, Denise. I think
we will have
closed it out.
We will have the people's vote for the night. They're gonna have a toll. They're gonna tally it up, and we're gonna know for sure who's the winner. So the people will be the judges for the night, and we'll for sure on Information Age get the polls for the night. So while they're getting that ready, I think we have another debate will be happening. I'm not sure. I think it's next week, if I remember surely. So stay in tune with that debate as well on the Information Age. We got many more debates lined up for the season as well. So yeah. Y'all stay tuned. Well, Craig, what's going on with the slides?
I think I gotta close it back out and come back in with it. Give me 1 second.
All right.
Because I guess when I shared it, I have a little difficulty, so I have to open it back up.
Yeah, next time just leave it up there. I'll just take it out from the screen.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Yeah, introduction
Uh,
round. Great.
intro, there's 5 minutes, right?
5 minutes. Let me know when you're ready, and
Yeah.
I'll put the time on for you.
All right. Y'all can see my slides.
I don't see anything. There you go.
Ready to go.
Yeah.
You ready?
Because, of course, the name of the topic of the debate was Margaret Sanger, a racist who tried to exterminate black people. Uh, Let me get into it. Of course, eugenics of the early 20th century. It came from the Greek word uh, eugenes, right? Meaning well born with the EU, meaning good or well with the genos, uh, meaning race, stock, or kind. So eugenics is a belief and practices that aim at improving genetic quality of the human population. These are some of the things that you've seen at the time. To the right hand side, unfit human traits, right? As you can see, it was a lot to do with diseases, alcoholism, uh, insanity, uh, runs in the family inheritance exactly the same way a color in a guinea pig, right? These are the things they tried to say at the time. Our marriage were eugenic. We could breed out most of these unfitness in 3 generations. So they was promoting marriages to breed out these things. As they say, the triangle of life. You can improve your education and even change your environment. But what we really are and what we settle, we are your parents that was born. Selected parents will have a better children is the great aim of eugenics. So there was the poster that was going around at the time. Uh, I'm going to get a quick biography of Margaret Sanger, according to Ellen Chesler, who wrote the biography on Margaret Sanger. Her origins was desperately ordinary. Born in 1879, the sixth child of 11, Margaret Higgins was the middle age in other. I mean, Margaret Higgins was saw her middle aged mother die in 1899, weakened by childbearing and the struggles of caring for a large family on a meager income of of an irresponsible husband. So that is basically how her upbringing was in the family. Margaret longed out to be a doctor. She settled for a career in nursing, which proved to be an education in the suffering caused by unsafe abortion. She married young to a Jewish architect and aspiring artist, William Sanger. Got, preg- got pregnant quickly and endured a difficult delivery while suffering from tuberculosis. So this was when she started having a better lifestyle when she got married. So she had came up from humble beginnings, I guess. For a while, Margaret Sanger played housewife to upstate New York, a role she found established. She began to thrive in 1910 when she and her husband moved to New York City, throwing themselves to a exhilarating ferment of radical politics. So they was doing radical politics, and we go see what radical politics are. So put a pin in that audience. Working part time at Lillian Ward Visiting Nursing Association in the immigrant ghettos of the Lower East Side. So she worked with in the ghettos of the uh, where immigrants was located. Sanger was also exposed to social pathos of a poverty hunting familiar to hers in her own youth, and the victimization of women and children. The author is Ellen Chesler, Women of Valor. Everything in black is going to be my source at the bottom. Margaret Sanger, Radical Politics for their time. This is radical politics she did. Sager's stated mission was to empower women to make their own reproductive choices. She did focus her effort on minority community because they was where, due to poverty, had limited access to health care. Women were especially vulnerable to the effects of unplanned pregnancy. As she framed it in birth control, was a fundamental woman rights issue. In enforced motherhood, as she wrote in the Women Rebel, the magazine she started in 1914, uh, enforced motherhood is the most complete denial of women rights to life and liberty. Sanger wrote,
5 minutes is up. You can
okay,
finish up.
let me finish out the last sentence. Sanger wrote on her mission statement in 1921, the almost universal demand of practical education, birth control, that the most hopeful sign that masses them today possess a divine spark in regeneration.
All right. All right. Woo. Steve, what's up, man? This is going to be your first round. 15 minutes for your first round.
Okay. I'm starting my clock now.
All
I in my introduction, I gave a definition of what eugenics is and also what racism is. Now, I will not attempt to objectify and dehumanize Margaret Sanger in the like manner as saying that colored people are as human weeds and are to be exterminated. Those are her words. And as the image on the side says, I accepted an invitation to talk to the women's branch of the Ku Klux Klan. This is Margaret Sanger. So my opponent gave some background information about the life of Margaret Sanger, and I would echo some of the things that he said, just to help the audience to understand that she was a person. It's just that she had skewed ideas or ideas that we would consider to be twisted and unacceptable today. Her early life. Margaret Sanger was born Margaret Higgins on September 18th, 1879 in Corning, New York, one of 11 children, and of Anne Purcell Higgins and Michael Hemsley Higgins. When the time came for Margaret to go away to college in 1897, her sister paid her 2-year tuition to Claverack College, a boarding school in Claverack, New York, where she remained until 1899, when her father asked her to come home to help nurse her mother, who was by then dying of cancer and tuberculosis. In 1912, Margaret and her husband, William Sanger, moved to New York City, where she went to work as a nurse in the slums on the east side of Manhattan. During that time in 1912, there was no reliable information on the subject of women's health and their suffering and or dying from the effects of frequent childbirth and self-induced abortion. So yes, I would agree that at that time, in that area, it was impoverished and there was no formal method of obtaining an abortion, and women were carrying out abortions themselves. Uh, Also, there was laws at that time. For example, first, the Comstock Law made it a federal offense to distribute information on birth control. Second, the existing religious and social morals at the time were not exactly conducive to such efforts. And third, just don't discuss such issues as contraceptives and forced induced abortions and so on and so forth. Women's health. Those weren't conversations that people had. She had become convinced that coming from a family of 11 children and an additional 8 failed pregnancies had contributed to her mother's demise. In 1905, she nearly died when giving birth to her first child, Grant. She described the experience as agonizing and exercise in in mental torture and a factor to be reckoned with. A few years later, she bore another son, Stuart, and a daughter, Peggy, who died in 1915 at the age of 5. It isn't hard to surmise that her experience with childbirth, her nursing work, her frustration in not obtaining the information she sought about contraceptives and women's health, and that she came from a large family, were all factors that shaped her worldview. This information is from the book, The Negro Project by Bruce Fleury. So that was a background. She's a person like we all are people, but as she grew and became those experiences in her childhood helped to shape her adulthood, and at that time it was eugenesis was a popular, it was popular and trending. Also remember what was going on in the world in terms of colonialism and imperialism. So it wasn't really that odd at that time for someone to be a eugenicist and also a racist. To some extent, I gather that it was accepted or acceptable, but in 2022, it's not acceptable. Margaret Sanger, the racist who wanted to exterminate Black people. Topics. So this topic here is shifts in American culture and policy to promote single-parent households, weakening the family unit of those requesting benefits and social services, specifically an underclass of poor Black people, so that they are more vulnerable and inclined to undergo abortions. For example, the welfare reform that had been enacted as part of Lyndon Johnson's LBJ's Great Society program, 1965, had an especially deleterious or evil effect on poor families, and the hardest hit was the Black family. This is a situation that continues to this day with seemingly no end in sight. According to two distinguished Black economists, Thomas Sowell and Walter Williams, during the decades leading up to the 60s, Blacks had been making tremendous strides in almost every aspect of American life, with the exception of the segregated South. And even there, the days of separate but equal and Jim Crow were clearly numbered. So what we're saying here is that in the past, during the 50s, Blacks were making strides. Then here comes Lyndon B. Johnson, who passed these laws, his Great Society program, and now things start to change. Sowell and Williams both point out that up to and through the 50s, Blacks were faring better in many ways than whites. Black families were stronger and more intact, with more of them attending church services than whites. Crime rates were lower among Black Americans, and probably most important, there were fewer Black children being born out of wedlock during that time. Both men point out that much, if not all, of this was due to a strong male presence in the Black home, and they point to LBJ's Great Society as the main reason all this began to change, and not for the better. Meaning that with these social programs, when the social worker comes by unexpectedly, you can't have no man in the house. The man either hid in the closet or ran down the fire escape. So some of these social programs, if a woman wanted benefits, she had to literally get rid of her man or get rid of her husband. No man could be found in the house, and that began the deterioration of the Black family. Changes in policies so that the Black family unit is adversely affected, thereby further margining a potential political and socioeconomic power base. So Margaret Sanger's goal and quite possibly that of the dominant members of American society and government is to have certain groups of people in a place where they're marginalized and they can't, politically and socioeconomically, they're not a force to be reckoned with. For example, Black people. And that's what I'm talking about, Black people. Prominent wealthy Caucasians supported Margaret Sanger, the mindset of scarcity. So some folks have a mindset that there's not enough to go around. So since there isn't enough, we, or people like Margaret Sanger and other Caucasians, they need to hoard it. They need to keep as much for themselves, and then okay, so other people are going to starve. Meanwhile, they have as much as they want. One such donor was John D. Rockefeller Jr., the son of oil billionaire, gave large sums of money to Sanger's cause beginning in the 1920s. In the 1930s, Julius Rosenwald Fund also contributed. So these are also quotes from the Negro Project by Bruce Fleury. So here I'm establishing that there was a political move to undermine the Black community, particularly those who didn't have access to resources to support the family. So Lyndon B. Johnson in passing these laws, and then now here comes the deterioration of the Black family. The man cannot be present when the social worker comes in. Moving along, so another topic, again, Margaret Sanger, the racist who wanted to exterminate the black people. So here we're seeing how weakening the Black family was part of an effort to marginalize and, well, we're not up to the abortions yet, but also to bring about the extermination of Black people. Topic: notable Black people were and still are duped into accepting the extinction of their racial group. The useful idiots, as described by Bruce Fleury in his book, The Negro Project. Margaret Sanger was most intelligent. On the one hand, courting notorious racist organizations such as the Ku Klux Klan, while also gaining invitation to and speaking at Black churches about so-called Planned Parenthood. Clearly, the message of these two different venues were not the same. So on the one hand, she's saying one thing to the Ku Klux Klan, then she got invited to Black churches, and while speaking to Black churches, we know that she wasn't saying the same thing that she was saying to Ku Klux Klan members. So speaking to the Ku Klux Klan is clearly an indication that the woman was racist and a eugenicist, which was a popular movement at that time. In 1926, Margaret Sanger agreed to address the ladies' auxiliary of the Ku Klux Klan, and it wasn't in some sleepy backwater town in the racist South. Rather, it was virtually in her backyard, namely the little community of Silver Lake, New Jersey. I know this because these are excerpts from the book, The Negro Project by Fleury. It's due to my research. That's why I know this. According to the second edition of Sanger's autobiography published in 1938, the address was one of the weirdest experience she ever had in lecturing, and I or she have to admit the most elementary terms, as though trying to make children understand. The adolescents eventually liked what I said or she said that night. Indeed, her remarks were so well received, she later wrote that several more invitations to similar groups were proffered. So she's talking to the Ku Klux Klan, but kind of like talking to them high-minded, and they don't quite understand what she's saying. So in efforts to speak more clearly, so when she speaks more clearly to them, now they start to understand, and they start cheering, and then inviting her back to more of their rallies so that they can speak, so that she can speak. The evidence is that it's from the book, The Negro Project by Bruce Fleury. So skeptical of Caucasians, many Blacks took notice and were gravely concerned that Sanger and her American Birth Control League were doing virtually nothing to address the scourge of grinding poverty and other obstacles that were preventing so many of them from accessing mainstream middle-class life in America. Unlike my opponent and so-called Black leaders such as W.E.B. Du Bois, Reverend Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, and Dr. Adam Clayton Powell Sr. of the Abyssinian Baptist Church, a mass population of Black people saw through the friendly and benign-sounding rhetoric employed by Sanger promoting a better health for Blacks through the code words of family planning, and they rightly sounded the alarm that birth control was in point of fact aimed at getting Blacks to reduce their numbers, and in turn any influence, either social, political, or economic, that they might have in the future. So yes, the goal of the eugenics movement, even W.E.B. Du Bois and other Black folks, even though they were
1 minute left.
I know they were so-called mindful idiots, but the goal of other folks was, by reducing the numbers of Black people, there's less of a voting bloc and less likelihood to participate and have political and socioeconomic power. Thank you very much. I will continue where I left off. Would you like me to finish? I can continue as my time up. Okay, thanks.
Ratchet Craig, love.
I'm next. I'll wait on y'all to let me know it's time.
All right. Yeah, now it's time. But all right, Craig. This is your first round, Craig. For the people who's watching, this is Craig first round right here. Steve, man, that round was super fire. I give you respect. Craig, bring that fire back. Let's see that heat. See the body back.
Microphone chick. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Yeah, all right.
All right, 15 minutes starting now.
My first slide for this round. First of all, let me get the definition of what birth control is. Birth control, the voluntary limitation of human reproduction, using such means as sexual abstinence, contraception, induced abortion, surgical sterilization. This includes the spacing as well as the number of children in your family. This is birth control. Birth control encompasses a wide range of rational and irrational methods. Put a pin in there. Rational and irrational methods that have been used in attempting to regulate fertility, as well as a response of individuals and a group of society to choices offered by such method. It has been remained controversial. American reformer Margaret Sanger coined the phrase in 1914, 1915, and it is a social movement she founded. The terms have been caught up in the quest for acceptance, generating many synonyms. Family planning equals birth control. Planned Parenthood equals birth control. Responsible parenthood equals birth control. Voluntary parenthood equals birth control. Contraception equals birth control. Fertility regulation and fertility control, which is birth control pills, equals birth control. And these are plenty of things that we use today. She founding the National Birth Control League. She founded a paper, Woman Rebel, on her return. She was indicted for male obscenities. Let's put a pin in there one. Male obscenities. She fled to Europe, and the indictment was withdrawn in 1914. She founded a National Birth Control League, which was taken over by Mary Ward Dennett and others while Sanger was in Europe. In 1916, Sanger set up the first birth control clinic in the United States. Following year was sent to the warehouse for creating a public nuisance. Uh, Her many arrests and prosecution and result outcries helped lead to changes in laws, giving doctors the right to give out birth control advice. She was put into the hands of the professional uh, to the patients. Her first marriage to architect William Sanger in 1902 ended in a divorce. In 1920, she was remarried in 1922 to J. Noah Slee. She kept her by then famous emphasis name, which is Sanger, from her first marriage. In 1927, Sanger helped organize the first World Population Conference in Geneva in 1942 after several organization mergers and the name changed to the Planned Parenthood. So Planned Parenthood came in 1942 at the Federation. See, next slide. The Awakening of Margaret Sanger. It was in 1912 in the ghettos. Sanger encountered Sadie Sachs, a Jewish immigrant who sparked her awakening to the necessity of birth control. In the speeches and book, Sanger later described Sachs as a 28-year-old mother of three through the complication of botched abortion. Sachs had big doctors who initially treated her for advice about preventing another pregnancy. Said, another baby will finish me. The doctor responded was callous. The doctor responded to callous. You want your cake while you eat it too, do you? Well, it can't be done. I tell you, the only sure thing to do, tell Jake to sleep on the roof. Months later, Sanger returned to the apartment and found Sachs suffering from septicemia, the result of self-induced abortion. So she it did her own abortion. I was this is Margaret Sanger. I was now fitted with the superficial cures with doctors and nurse social workers who brought the face to face with this overwhelming truth of women needs and yet turn to pass on the other side, wrote Sanger, promising. I would tell the world what's going on in the lives of these poor women. I would be heard, as Chancellor noted. The portrait of sex may not be uh, a composition of many women Sanger had encountered. Even so, she accounted the word sprout of maternity misery and sex represented was undisputable. To the cause that bad information about birth control. So when she had got that charge, it was based off this law. The Comstock Act 1873 made it illegal to send obscene, lewd, immoral, and indecent publication through the mail. The law also made it a misdemeanor for anyone to sell, give away, or possess any obscene book, pamphlet, pictures, drawings, and advertisements. The brethren of the legislature include writing or instrument pertaining to contraceptions or abortions, even if it was written by a physician. The Comstock vigorously enforced this section of the act that dealt with birth control. Numerous doctors suffer arrest and conviction for supplying reading material explaining pregnancy and how to prevent it. They was getting arrested for giving out birth control advice and how to use it. This concerned social reformers because it prevented women from controlling the size of their family, a particular hardship for those with small incomes. So it hurted the poor to have large families. Uh, in 1915, her work, Woman Rebel, circulated this work through the U.S. Postal Service, effectively violating the Comstock law. On her appeal, her conviction was reversed on the grounds of contraceptive device could legally be promoted for a cure and prevention of diseases. Psycho ops in 1920. Although the clinics became more common in the 1920s, the movement still faced significant challenge. Large sections of the medical community were still resistant to do birth control. Birth control advocates were blacklisted by the radio industry, the state and federal law, though generally not enforced, still outlaw contraception. They wrote like rubbers and stuff like that. The most significant opponent to the birth control was the Catholic Church, which mobilized oppositions in many venues during the 1920s. Catholic Church persuaded the Syracuse City Council to ban Sanger for giving a speech in 1924. The National Catholic Welfare Conference lobbied against birth control. The night of Columbia boycotted hotel that hosted the birth control event. The Catholic Police Commissioner Albany prevented Sanger from speaking there, and the Catholic mayor of Boston, James Curley, blocked Sanger from speaking in public. The several newsreel companies circumcised to the public from Catholics refusing to cover the related story of birth control. What was the Catholic values and moral system against birth control? Well, it comes from the Bible. In the book of Genesis, the son of Judah, it fulfilled the laws, liberate marriage, was impregnated his brother widow Tamar. Shout out to Harry Tamar, in order to raise a offspring from the union of his brother name. In the order to avoid raising a descendant for his late brother, however, always spilled the semen on the ground when he went in to his brother's wife, so he would not give the offspring to his brother. So there was a sin back then in the Bible. So they were still living this Bible verse through American history. Definition of onanism is masturbation, cuteus interruptus, self-gratification. Cuteus interruption, also known as withdrawal, pull out method, is a method of birth control in which the man during sexual intercourse withdraw his penis from a woman's vagina prior to ejaculating, and then directs his ejaculation semen away from the vagina in effort to avoid insemination. Birth control is race
Hey,
suicide. It
Ratchet
was
Chris,
going
can you
on
make
during the
your
time of
slides
Margaret
full
Sanger
screen?
Ops 2. Today it would be called the Great Replacement Theory, right? Race
Craig, can you make
suicide,
your
term
slides full
popularized
screen,
by the
Craig?
President Theodore Roosevelt in the 20th century, initially referred to the fear that white upper class and middle class population would, by voluntary restriction of family size, fail to replace themselves. The fear was also taken up by some African American
Was it
leaders,
this time?
notably Marcus Garvey, who suspected the whites' effort to provide birth control for blacks was designed to reduce the black population and weaken their power. So this was kind of where this paranoia came from in the black community, Marcus Garvey. Also today, who is selling it is Ben Carson, the black sellout Republican waging war on women. Uh, in an interview on Fox,
Emac, was it his time? Emac.
Oh, yeah. See if he could. Craig could make his the slides full screen.
is it full screen?
No,
Okay. Okay. Is it my time?
it's still your time. Well, I stop.
Okay. Deliberately placing most of the clinic by the black neighborhoods to control the population, and they found that Margaret Sanger was not particularly in love with black people. This is according to Ben Carson. Uh, Former president candidate Herman Cain made the same similar statement in 2011. He was also a Republican. You know how a Republican thinks of black people. Ben Carson was type of Negroes of the day. So did Margaret Sanger believe in eugenic? Yes, but not the way Carson implied. Eugenic was a discipline championed by property society, but widely debunked the promote of good breeding in the aim to prevent poor breeding. The idea was that the human race could be better through encouraging people with traits like intelligence, hard work, and cleanliness to be genetic to reproduce, right? They want these people to reproduce. Eugenics was taken horribly, extremely during the Holocaust, during the Hitler stages, through forced sterilization and breeding experiment. In the United States, eugenics intersect with birth control movement in 1920, and Sanger reportedly spoke at the eugenics conference. She also talked to the birth control being used as a facilitator, the process of weeding out the unfit of preventing birth control defects. And it had nothing to do with black people, that statement. As you see my source in the black, Facts Chuck, NPR.org. Everything in the black gonna be my source. Uh, let me see. How long I got?
You got like about 30 seconds.
Okay, and as you can see, Margaret Sanger was doing mostly things for the women, poor women. That was her whole goal. So right now, I'm trying to find out these racist implements, and hopefully, my opponent could show these clear-cut extermination of black people by the greatest white woman in the world, Margaret Sanger.
Wow, Steve. This is your second round. I want to see this body bag, Steve. You got to hit the home run here, because Craig, I don't know. Let's see what you got. So second round, 15 minutes. Let's see your presentation. Steve, I'm not sure if you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm here. Let me start my time. So my primary source is a book called The Negro Project by Bruce Fleury. That's my primary source. So moving on to my next slide. Topic: the notable black people. So black people, as I said previously, Margaret Sanger did speak to the Ku Klux Klan women's organization, and she did give a speech to them. This is documented in the book. So in speaking to the on one hand speaking to the Ku Klux Klan, and then on the other hand speaking to black churches. Then one second. This one second. All right. So okay. So the Black people in the community were skeptical of white folks coming into their community, speaking at their churches, just primarily based on the history of the relationship between black and white folks, a relationship of dominance versus oppression. So to say that there's not a history here of abuse, that would not be correct. And then mentioning the Republican Party and what the Republican wants is different from what Margaret Sanger wants. That's not correct either. So what this paragraph here is saying is that so you had ordinary people who were skeptical of having a Caucasian woman coming to their church and attempting to tell them about Planned Parenthood. And the masses were, the congregation had seemingly more sensible than some of the pastors and some of the preachers who were inviting this woman into their church to speak. The author Bruce Furlery describes many prominent Black leaders as being useful idiots, such as W.E.B. Du Bois, Reverend Jesse Jackson, and so on and so forth. So Margaret Sanger was speaking in code. On one hand, mentioning better health and family planning, which sounds nice, but her goal was to her goal, as well as the goal of other prominent white folks, as well as her donors, were to marginalize Black people through contraceptives and abortions, so that Black people would not become a social and political and economic force in the United States to be reckoned with or to be dealt with. However, Sanger enjoyed widespread support in the Black community even before the official inception of the Negro Project. So the Negro Project was something that was very real. And in 1930, she opened a clinic in Harlem with backing from Julius Rosenwald, funded in 1930s. While concocting the Negro Project plan, Sanger writes to Clarence J. Gamble, heir to Procter & Gamble Company fortune, saying that, and I quote, "Black preachers are needed to quell the mind of the rebellious so that family planning can be embraced." So here she writes in a letter about how she doesn't want it. She writes to Gamble that she doesn't want it to be known. She's talking to Gamble, who is also a millionaire, a very rich and influential white person. She doesn't want it to be known, and they're talking to each other and they're writing, and it's documented that really she's talking about her real plans and her real intentions. And she says, the extermination of the Negro population. This is documented, and this is what she says. So behind the scenes, they're talking in code, and meanwhile, out in the open, they're saying something different. And to be shocked at this is absolutely amazing. She goes on to say that the most successful educational approach to the Negro is through a religious appeal, and the ministers is the man who can strengthen our idea that strengthen out that idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members. So using these useful idiots, specifically Black preachers and Black doctors,
I think he cut out.
saying is that,
Steve,
yes,
your reception is kind of bad. But
you
the
can't
time is
hear me?
still going.
Go back a little bit with your point because you just cut out a little.
Yeah, you cut off for like 10 seconds, but you go ahead.
Okay, that Planned Parenthood is not a bad thing, but there was that in terms of the Negro Project. The Negro Project is it actually came about in 1939, where Margaret Sanger concocted this plan to use Black ministers and doctors as the so-called useful idiots to be the figurehead or be the face of the Planned Parenthood so that she could disseminate this information to the Black community. Margaret Sanger, the racist who wanted to exterminate Black people. Topic: what happens to aborted fetal stem cell tissue? Follow the money. The use of fetal tissue from elective abortions is commonplace in the pharmaceutical industry and medical research. Despite the recent attention paid to Planned Parenthood reimbursement practices, so in other words, it's not like they throw out the tissue. It's used for experimentation and also for vaccination. So these clinics, they get paid, they get money. They don't throw out the tissue. They then sell it to research. Planned Parenthood. So my other point is that to date, organizations are distancing themselves from Margaret Sanger and the name of Margaret Sanger because it is known in 2022, it is known that she was a racist and a eugenicist. Planned Parenthood of Greater New York will remove the name of the national organization's founder, Margaret Sanger, from a Manhattan clinic in an attempt to reckon with her lies, her ties to the eugenic movement, the organization announced. So they're removing her name because she's tied to eugenics. Then also historical reproduction harm within communities of color, and her and Margaret Sanger's legacy of racism. This is fact, is not fiction, and I'm not making this up. So the statistics. One startling statistic is that demographics have determined long and extensive research that 2.1 live births per female is the minimum number required for a people to survive, let alone thrive. But with the indoctrinate abortion rate among Black women, combined with premature death from other causes, disease, drug abuse, and violent crimes being among them, the replacement level in the Black community is less than half that number. Abortion is the leading cause of death in Black America, eclipsing all others by a substantial margin. Abortion wipes out the lives of unborn Black children to the tune of nearly 500,000 every year. Moreover, most of the Planned Parenthood's abortion clinics are located in Black inner city communities, a fact that can hardly be called coincidental. Solutions: promote family values and two-parent households. Education for workplace preparedness and socioeconomic advancement and awareness of the abortion issue. And also communicate and dialogue among members of the community. So here I am providing you with statistics. I'm also offering solutions for our community. And these are real statistics and these are real numbers. And also understanding that the removal of Margaret Sanger's name from our building is both a necessary and overdue step to reckon with our legacy and acknowledge Planned Parenthood contributions to historical reproductive harm within communities of color. Karen Schultz, chair of the board of Planned Parenthood of Greater New York, said in a statement, Margaret Sanger concerns and advocacy for reproductive health have been clearly documented, but so too have her racist legacy. These are not my words. These are the words of Karen Schultz. who is the an executive of Planned Parenthood. These are not my words. These are, and this was gotten from a website. The link for the website is on the bottom. Then the statistics. Sanger's view on race and religion were a toxic mix, and that poison was to be doled out in heaping doses over the next several decades to one special group above all, Black Americans. By making her intentions behind such benevolent sounding euphemisms as women's health, family planning, and later on, a woman's right to choose, she was able to dupe a great many unsuspecting members of this group into beginning the long, slow, inexorable descent into what today is being called by many Black Americans an extinction event. So I quoted from the book, The Negro Project, and I also quoted from executives of today's Planned Parenthood, how they are disassociating themselves from Margaret Sanger because she is a known racist and a eugenicist, and this is not acceptable in 2022. And to argue against the fact that Margaret Sanger is a racist, was a racist, and was a eugenicist that's the argument of my opponent. But I will reiterate and say over and over again that in the past, such ideas of being a eugenicist was promoted and accepted, but today it's no longer accepted. But in offering solutions, I definitely say that we should promote family values and two-parent households, that fathers need to stay in the household and be there for their sons and daughters, and to maintain a strong family unit. Also, we as a people, we need education. I mean, correct education, and try to steer ourselves clear of the indoctrination of the formal education system, and read and research outside of formal education. So we also need education for workplace preparedness and socioeconomic advancement and awareness of the abortion crisis, because it is truly an abortion. You have more abortion clinics in Black communities than in any other community. Why is that? Why are abortion clinics promoted so much in the Black in inner cities? And then also, we need to communicate with each other. We need to communicate and dialogue among members of the community, and also among ourselves, because some people may not know the information that I'm sharing, particularly the statistical information in terms of how many children we should be having as a people, 2.1 live births in order just to sustain ourselves as a group of people and a competitive and viable force in the United States.
30 seconds.
Okay. So I know that I've made my case that it may have been acceptable in the past to be a eugenicist, and it may have been acceptable to be a racist. That Margaret Sanger, she gave speeches to the Women's League of the Ku Klux Klan. She also had, she got donations from wealthy Caucasians who they had the mindset of scarcity, that there isn't enough to go around. So therefore, we need to eliminate the unfit and the undesirable. Okay, so I'll get 5 minutes to close, correct?
That's it.
I will get 5 minutes.
Yeah, so
I won't get 5 minutes to close.
No, this is going to be Ratchet's round. That was it for the.
I'll get a 5 minutes closing right after that, right?
Yeah, we'll do a closing at the end. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Man, Ratchet Craige, man. Woo! Gotta admit, that's a fire round right there, my mans. I want to see that fire, and please, if you can, throw that up.
Hey, let me ask a quick question for my time start. We are doing 3 rounds, right?
Say what?
3 rounds.
Is that? I thought we were doing 2 rounds. 15
I thought we
minutes.
were doing 2 rounds.
2 15s.
215. I thought it was 3.
What do you say, Denise?
That was 2:15. Why would you have 3 15-minute rounds?
I'll go do 3 10-minute rounds.
I
But
know we used to
yeah.
To this 2:15.
Yeah, so this is your last round, and then we're gonna do it with the closing and the questioning round.
All right,
So,
let me
yeah, see if you can full screen that, Craig, so the people could see it bigger. Because I like the way that Steve had it full screen.
You have
Because
to play it like he's
go to home.
playing.
Yeah, go to home on your top left, bro. You gotta go to slideshow. My bad. Go to slideshow on the right. Yeah, there you go. Slideshow. Hit that. Click slideshow, and then make it full screen. Yeah, click on the slideshow. You got that? Oh, there you go. It's a little late on my end.
Y'all see it. Just let him go ahead and go.
All right, Craig. It's on you. Yeah, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Craig. Craig, you're on mute.
Craig, unmute yourself, bud.
let me go back to my slide. So camera slide.
Yeah. Go ahead. Bring it back.
All right, I'm gonna get started. W the boss for birth control as a means to ensure the health of women and children. Because my opponent called them useful idiots. That's a very blasphemy word. But anyway, this article by longtime editor of the Crisis magazine of the NAACP offer a early perspective on birth control, leading voices in the African American community. The rhetoric in its article, which is editorial for a special issue of Children, engages several lines of argument, circulating birth control movement. The boss positioned a birth control as a tool of building a stable family that can support racial progress. He was trying to build racial progress. In particular, he argued for birth control as a means to ensure health of women and children. In his view, women needed to be able to space a childbearing out over enough years to allow them to maintain their health, the women's health, properly looking after their children. The contributes to a social progress of the community. He believed in marriage. Yes, marriage is a sacrifice. Childbearing is pain. The education is eternal vigilance. But the end of it all is progress. Without marriage, there can be today no properly guarded childhood. In the United States, 1,256 Negro children out of 10,000 born are illegitimate. Poor little innocent was homeless and half cared for. Without these childbearing families, there could be few future workers and torch barriers. Without education, we grope to eternal darkness like cats gravely, ignorantly chasing their tails. But with children brought with a thought and foresight into an intelligent family circle and trained by their parents, teacher, friends, and society, we will have a eternal progress in eternal life. Against these, no barrier can stand. To them, no problem is insalutable. The 1930s, medicine and health, right? We came from the roaring 20s, right? Then all of a sudden the Great Depression hit. And that started in 1929. So the medical field, it made major development in the field of the medicine occurred during the 1930s. withstood in the way dramatically improving in the public health was the Depression. By the mid-30s, the average national home income of the United States was half of that of 1929, with nearly 40% of some states' populations on the government relief. Fewer patients could afford to pay for their medical care. Physicians earned less, and as a result, but many continue to treat charity cases for free. This is according to the Encyclopedia. Everything in black down here. This Encyclopedia of Social Science. The Great Depression and healthcare issues and solution. Large increase for cancer, respiratory disease, heart attacks occurred during the Depression. But syphilis was one of the main things. It transmitted disease that affect as many as 10% of America, a rate higher than any industrial nation with records. The main cause of death in the 1930s. In order risks were heart disease, cancer, pneumonia, infection, and parasitic disorder. The last group included the flu, tuberculosis, and syphilis. The federal government addressed the national health for players of providing better housing to the Farm Security Administration, the FSA, a new deal agency provided medical insurance, child care, help for the disabled, and boosted public health campaign. The Food, Drug, and the Cosmetic Act of 1938 protected the public from quack doctors and dangerous drugs or procedures. During the Great Depression of 1930, it worsened our already bleak economy situation for the African American. They was the first to be laid off the job, and they suffered from unemployment rate 2 or 3 times higher than the whites. In early public assistance programs, Americans offered substantially aid that the white sub-charitable organization, even for the blacks, for their soup kitchens. Uh, this why this up? This one right here, basically, with the Republicans administration of 1920, the black voters drifted to the Democratic Party. So that's when they switched for the Republican Party to the Democrats, and that would because it was going out. The Republican was doing the lily white at the time, as they call it. Since the early days of birth control activism, Margaret Sanger has been awfully accused of being a racist, among other things. To many of her critics, her birth control activism must be understood as a wicked plot to undermine human morals and decency, and any means of the twisting her message to convey their this are fair game. These are the favorite method of attack on Sanger that persists to this day. What Steve, my opponent, have been still pushing right now is present sentence or phrase of Sanger out of context to prove her true beliefs. They try to find out her true beliefs, the conspiracy about people of other races. Her detractor even claimed that she was on a genocidal mission to reduce, even exterminate blacks, Jews, and other immigrant groups by destroying future generations. Never mind that Martin Luther King praised her work on behalf of his belligerent people. Never mind that she worked closely with the civil rights leader Mary Bethlehem and W.E. Du Bois. Never mind that she opened a clinic to serve black people and other minority women because so many existing clinics refused to serve anyone but whites. Never mind, she wrote in 1944, we must protect Chinese baby, Hindu babies, English and Russian baby, Puerto Rican baby, Negroes and white American baby who stay side by side to bring promise of a better future. That was her quote coming from her. Negroes need birth control too. You know, that's what they called themselves back then, Negroes. You had Margaret Garvey had a Negro word, so don't take offense to the Negro word. Uh, this letter from Margaret Sanger for the Honorable Chairman of the Birth Control Federation of America was sent out to the Division of the Negro Service Birth Control Federation. The letter proposed to invite recipients W. Du Bois to participate in the National Negro Service Committee, which would promote birth control in the African American community. This is the official letter. It's in the Digital Library of America. Uh, every black child count as a valuable contribute to the future. She wrote that in a it was in a Birth Control Review, 1932. As you can see, it said Black Folks in Birth Control by W. Du Bois. A question of Negro health, Charles Johnson. He was one of the people in quality versus quantity. You want quality. Sager birth control movement did have support in the black neighborhoods beginning in the 20s with there was a League of Harlem that started by African American Sager, who closely worked with the NAACP founder W. Du Bois on the Negro Project, which she viewed as a way to get safe contraception around to the African Americans. In 1946, Sager wrote about an important Negro parents a choice in how many children they should have. Uh, and in her article, Love or Babies, Must Negro Mothers Choose, Sager wrote, the Negro race has reached a place in its history where every possible effort should be made to have every Negro child count as a valuable contribute to the future of America. Negro parents, like all parents, must create the next generation for strength, not for weakness, for health, not for despair. Her attitude toward the African American can certainly be viewed as paternalistic, but there is no evidence that she subscribed to the more racist idea of the time, or she tried to coerce the black community. Margaret Sanger helping out the poor. Sanger wrote in her free free album Alaska in 1939, uh, November the 12th. You are quite right of assuming poor whites down south are not much better off than Negroes, but there has been at least a start in several states to help the poor whites, as there is not a sufficient time for a nurse, nor is there material left over for the Negroes. These are just left out of service in most states. This is why I'm anxious for the special fund to be directed for the Negro Project. Let me see. Letter from Margaret Sanger to this the letter that most people is talking about. Uh, letter from Margaret Sanger to DJ Gamble. Basically, in this letter, he was writing to this Negro doctor. Uh, he would write to she would write to DJ Gamble, but they was talking about Miss Rose. Miss Rose was a Negro nurse, and he was trying to get uh she was trying to get Negro doctors, right, to take over the project. Miss Rose sent me a copy. This is the content of the letter. Miss Rose sent me a copy of the letter December the 5th that you doubted worthwhile to employ full-time Negro physicians. She kind of checking Gab on this. It seems to me that your spirit where I can have been in North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas, that while colored Negroes have a great respect for white doctors, they can get closer to their own members and more or less lay their cards on the table, which means they're ignorant, superstitious, and doubt. Uh, they do not do this with white people. And if we train a Negro doctor at the clinic, he can go among the enthusiastic with his knowledge, which I believe will have far-reaching results among the colored people. His work, in my opinion, should be entirely with the Negro profession and nurses and hospitals and social work, as well as the county, as well as in the county white doctors. His success depends upon his personality and his training by us. This the controversial section. The minister work is also important. And also he should be trained perhaps by the Federation, the Birth Control movement, to order to our ideally goals that we hope to reach. We do not want the words get out. This is controversial that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out the idea if it ever occurs to us, a more rebellious member. He goes on to she goes on to say that she trusts Miss Rose to go by this, and she kind of want hands off of it because she's not around like Miss Rose was. Dispelling the myth and the slander of Margaret Statue. But to the controversial thing from the 1939 letter that
30
I just
seconds.
wrote,
30 seconds.
uh, but mostly, man, I hate to, thought I had to go have a little time, but that's it right there. And she basically, she was checking Campbell on that because Campbell the one who said the extermination. She would reply back to his mark of Gamble.
Time.
Mm.
Time. All right. All right, now, folks. This is the closing end of the round. And Steve is on you to close out. 5 minutes. Timer start. And go ahead.
Okay, Denise, can you put it up or no? Okay, thank you so much, Denise.
I'll restart. You got you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Margaret Sanger, the racist who wanted to exterminate blacks. So it's not in going back to the 1890s, early 1900s. It's not so strange to have someone being a eugenicist and also being a racist. It has the same meaning today. It's just it was more acceptable back then. So in closing, based on the definition of eugenics and the word and practices of Margaret Sanger, it has been established that she was a racist. She worked from a position of privilege and power to gain funding for Planned Parenthood and abortion clinics in predominantly Black communities. The historical record shows that the planned extermination of one group of people by another is not a novel event. It is called physical and psychological warfare and terrorism. So we're acting like today, like people planning the extermination of Black people, like that's so like no, what is yeah, it historically has happened, and just because it's 2022 doesn't mean that it's so drastically different now. Social, religious, and educational indoctrination now functions to promote Planned Parenthood, which results in Black communities and single parents not reaching the productive threshold of 2.1 births per female for racial survival. The goal of limiting Black reproductive success is so that the community does not gain greater political and socioeconomic success and power. So there is an agenda behind it, so that Blacks as a people do not continue to gain greater political and socioeconomic power. And how is that achieved? That's achieved by increasing the numbers of Black people in America. Again, I am promoting or offering solutions. Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood didn't have any solutions other than contraceptives, limiting the number of Black people, and carrying out abortions so that the pharmaceutical company can have stem cells to carry out their research, and the clinics get paid for selling fetal tissue. So it's a money making venture, um, geared to limiting and exterminating Black people as a group. So my solutions: promote family values and two-parent households, education for workplace preparedness and socioeconomic advancement, and awareness of the abortion crisis, because truly it is a crisis. When you're talking about over 500,000 Black children aborted per year, that we should um, in, engage in longer lasting relationships with two family households where we nurture and support each other. And also, my solution is also having communication and dialogue among members of the community and also among ourselves, so that we can address current issues facing our community. How much time do I have left?
You got about a minute and 30 seconds.
Okay. All right. But in terms of Margaret Sanger being the greatest white woman ever, I am very unclear on how Margaret Sanger deserves the label of being the greatest white woman ever. In terms, how has Margaret Sanger improved the condition of Black people? Because if we're going back to the 1950s to the present, the fact that we're aborting and we have contraceptives, it really hasn't improved the condition of black folks. If she's the greatest white woman ever and she's done so much for Black people, how come our condition isn't really improving? So my suggestion is that we try something different, and we harken back to times such as the 1950s, where family values and, yes, church values and education. We were graduating high school at greater numbers than Caucasian people, and we were a competing force. We were a force to be reckoned with. So I would say, look, to some extent, reflect back, and also I question, why is it that Margaret Sanger should be looked at as being the greatest white woman ever, and what has Margaret Sanger done for the Black community? And also, not looking to Margaret Sanger or anyone else to do anything for us that we can very well do for ourselves. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Steve. That's it. Now, Craig, it's on you, my brother. Bring that heat. Close it in. Hit the home run. Let's see that.
Yeah. All right. Today I kind of touched on eugenics, right? It was basically it's just so you could. It's based on your genes, right? It's based on you having a good fit family and everything like that, passing on your best genes of you and the person that you deal with, right? Uh, Instead of choose somebody because you don't want to have a like sickle cell anemia. You both don't want to have sickle cell anemia traits. Then y'all have a child that has sickle cell. That's what basically what eugenics try to teach you how to go by that, right? So you can have a better child, so they have better care. You don't need a lot of children if you poor, especially in down south. It was a lot of people poor uh who having lots of children and they barely could take out. A lot of males was just getting women pregnant and wasn't letting women uh live out, what let a lot of me was leaving the family or wasn't able to take care of the family because there was too many children to take care of. And then you have also things that was going on like the healthcare system. They weren't getting the best treatment. A lot of people was given like grandma grandma gave you soap for everything, aspirin solve everything type of thing. Then you had the quacks who's selling you just stuff that don't work. You was dealing with all that during that time. Uh, I also gave Margaret Sanger biography, how she started off. Uh, and then she did radical politics at the time. You had a lot of people who didn't want her to push birth control method. She got arrested for it. Uh, she got arrested for it. She did time for it. And she fought the birth control movement could happen. Without her at the time fighting for this, you would have birth control that people would just be having babies willy nilly, right? So she just made sure that the woman could have birth control pills, and even the males, right, with the contraception. They could kind of choose when they want to have their baby instead of irresponsible parents going around. Uh, I told you she founded this birth control thing. How she dealt with abortions, right? She dealt with abortion that women always had abortions since the beginning of time. So her thing is, I want to put it in the hands of the doctors, the physicians, not the woman who self-induce herself, cause her own abortion because she can't have another child, uh, uh, because she might die, or she even don't need another child. Period. You know what I'm saying? Because the man ran out. So if a woman decide to do that, why not let her have it in the hands of the physician instead of doing it on her own, or meeting some type of person that she got to go to the doctors, but the doctors telling her, "Nah, I can't do it because it against the law." So you got to suffer whatever power you have. You got to suffer with whatever the backlashes are, the leftover effects for self-inducing yourself, self-abortion. They call it back alley abortions. Uh, Also, she had opponents who put their religious belief in their Christian Catholic values
1 minute
with the
left.
onanism, and they was like her biggest opponent was uh it started getting recognized that birth control was legal. You had the Catholic Church doing a moral thing that they just want you just to have babies because it was against their Bible to use birth control and contraception. So I thought I explained it today. So bang.
You got 30 seconds left.
Okay. And also she looked out Margaret Sanger also looked out for the Jewish poor, the immigrant poor, and the black poor. I thought I showed like primary evidence of her letters. Uh Not no book called Negro Project from a opponent, a op of Margaret Sanger. The whole book he had was an op of Margaret Sanger. He didn't go to the real Negro Project. He had a hater. So
Time. All right. That was some fire. So Denise, were we going with a questioning round, or are we going with the poll right now?
I already put a poll, so it's up to them if they want to do question round right now or not.
yeah, we're
Yeah,
going
let's do a
question
question
round.
round. Let's do a bonus. So, put it in the private chat if anything, so I could announce it, or we announce it after. Steve, you want to ask Ratchet Craig some questions?
Well,
Three
my
questions.
question is, how is Margaret Sanger the greatest white woman ever?
That's your question.
Yes.
If you looked at my presentation and my thing, her looking out for poor people all across the world, looking out for women, and want them to have better health care, more control over their body, taking them away from this religious value country, especially being Catholic based, Christian based. It was also the Protestant Christians that was involved in it. She let the woman uh, have their own choice to their body. You know what they wanted to do. Do they want to be on birth control pills? Do they want to have contraception? The men want to have contraception. They could put on a rubber. Syphilis was around that time. She reached out to the South, where it was poorly educated, and it was hurting during the times of the 1930s. She the one who set up all this feeding and stuff like this with the rest of the world.
Feeding.
The rest of the world left out.
Your 1 minute is up. Steve, you want to go get a following question up?
Yeah. I would like to. I mean, feeding, to say that Margaret Sanger fed poor people, that's a stretch. But also okay. So on the one hand, there's contraception and abortion. Could it have been, are there other ways to address people being poor other than limiting their numbers?
Well, basically, she didn't take nobody in the clinic and told them to get an abortion, right? And I hate I couldn't do my whole presentation, but I will be doing it on Hearing Show later. But the rest of my information. But basically, she when it came to the abortion, she didn't take nobody head in there to go do the abortion. You put these clinics in the area because they are social clinics, so people who can't afford like the to go to the big hospitals where the rich people go, they'll still have health care. They'll still have the time to get rubbers, birth control pills, get checked for diseases. And if they have any abortion, it's up to the choice of the woman to whether she want to have an abortion or not. It wasn't Margaret Sanger who make you have an abortion. It's the person's choice. She was a pro-choice person.
All right. I think we have a call in right now. Is this Sean?
It's me.
Hey, Sean. You could go ahead and ask your question to the debaters if you like.
Yeah. Okay. I got I got separate questions for both of them. My first question is to Steve. I need to know this. Steve, did you have a hard time trying to find the letters of Margaret Sanger and or her lecture or conversation with quote unquote Klan members?
The book, the source that I use, it has endnotes and it has footnotes. So did I go in the endnotes and footnotes and research to find that letter and so on and so forth? No, I did not. I know that the book is a scholarly book and it has endnotes, it has a bibliography, and it has footnotes as well. Did I actually go and source this letter? No, I did not.
Okay. Thank you for being honest. Now, the reason that I asked that is because if you say that this is a scholarly work, you would have to qualify as such. Your argument was more emotionally driven on that aspect. That's why I asked if you look for the letters.
Whose emotion? My emotions or the author's emotions?
Your source's emotions.
So I'm going off of the emotions of my source.
Yes, your source was biased in the approach. You hear it in your presentation.
So is that my bias or the source's bias?
Is your source is your bias? You would need more evidence to support your source. You can't argue. Well, I don't want to sway anyone in the crowd, but your source, you didn't have anything to substantiate your source. There was no evidence to go behind it. Like if your source says one thing, then come behind that source with more substantial evidence is what I'm referring to. Like the letters. That's why I said the letters or an article or an interview, something that would have strengthened your argument regarding that book.
Granted, but can I pose you a question? Since you questioning me, can I question you?
Go ahead, make it quick. So, because you still got one more question for Craig, and we got to move on.
Okay, so is the solution to what Black people are currently experiencing, such as the cities that we live in, and our condition, is the solution contraceptives and Planned Parenthood and abortion? Is this the solution? If it's been going on for so long, how come it's not improving our situation?
Contraceptives and birth control are solutions to a problem that we can't control.
But the problem's still going on. So what's the solution?
It's not going on. As you can see, our birth rate has actually slowed. It's our counterparts, our brown brothers and sisters, who are now exceedingly birthing at enormous rates.
So our birth rate being slow, that's a good thing. We shouldn't be increasing our numbers in America.
I didn't say that is a good thing at all. But it's not a good thing when we don't. It's not a good thing if we do not have the resources to substantiate. Right. So yeah, can I go on now, Craig?
Well, we got to wrap this up honestly because Steve still got to go on with his questioning round. If you want, we're about to wrap it up real quick.
No,
I just had a quick question for Craig.
Yeah, let him ask Ratchet because then it's gonna look like he just went in with Steve.
Right. I didn't want to make it look like I was coming. Now, Ratchet Craig. I listened to your horrible last presentation. I think you did a piss poor job of arguing it. So I want to ask you. No. Even with you accessing the letters, even with you having access to the letters, do you think that you could have did a better job at letting the sources speak than your assertions at times? And I'm talking about the letters. Yeah, we didn't get enough of the letters.
Yeah, the letter at the end, because I kind of had a communication problem. I could have did better. I would have read the letter verbatim. I would have.
Did you drink before the debate?
Huh?
Did you have a drink before this debate?
Nah, I ain't had no drink before this debate.
Sean, you being illegal.
Why? You think I had a drink?
Don't add homonyms to the debaters.
All
right, man.
Nah, he good. Sean, all right. I will get him back.
So they just do this. But
So, Steve, you got your last question for Ratchet, and then Ratchet, I'll give it to you so you could interrogate Steve.
I would ask Craig the same question. What are the solutions? What are the solutions? Is, for example, having the causing, is contraception, the abortions, lowering the birth rate number of Black people in America, is that the solution to what's currently going on with Black people in America? Is that the solution? Did Margaret Sanger offer a viable solution to the situation of some Black people here in America? Is that acceptable? Is that viable? Is that the only solution?
First of all, the solution when it comes to childbirth should be put in the woman's hand of any race. That's the first solution, because she's the one who will probably have to experience is her body, and having a baby is deadly anyway. Anything can happen having a baby with you. So, as far as I'm a person that believe in quality over quantity. If you have 2-3 kids, that's better than having 8 kids and you barely can feed them. 2-3 kids is you could go through some ups and downs, but I think you can still work them out. You start having 8 kids and you don't have the means and necessary of doing it, you gonna have the large incarceration that we have today. You go be reaching into them fields, in them fields, right? You gonna start reaching into the white people fields as far as they have foster cares, right? They lead in foster care. We lead in abortion, they lead in foster cares. It's white kids. They double the number of us. We will be going into them rims even more, right? We have already the largest incarceration per population in the European already. The white person already have child care, like they have babies and they give them over to the state, right? Based off their moral Catholic values, not to uh, abort the baby or practice responsible sexual reproduction as far as using contraceptions.
Okay.
Okay, I'll reload it.
All right, Craig is on you. You got 3 questions. Interrogate Steve starts now.
Okay, Steve. So with the question you asked me, do you propose that black people should lay off the birth control and should lay out the birth control? How would you be your solution of going off, laying out the birth control or these different contraceptions? Besides, because pregnancy can happen, so how would you deal with it besides birth control? As far as your solution,
Well, I'm not saying that not have use any form of birth control. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that what we need is education. That we should value education more. Um, uh, yes, some aspect of conscious. I'm not against choice. I would say yes, women have to have a choice, but yet still we need a stronger value, family values, having both parents in the household raising children together, and that to reinforce and strengthen the Black family. Then you have 2 parents and they can work together to raise the children and to nurture the children. That's a solution. So what I'm saying is that contraception by itself and also abortion by itself is not helping the issue. That we should value husband and wife, or the parents of the children, being together, instead of 75% of our households being raised by single mothers. And you have single mothers who have all of these responsibilities and they don't have the education. They also don't have the financial means and the resources to raise, well, not necessarily raise, their programs that can assist.
All right, that woman is next question, Craig.
yes, Steve. So are you trying to assert that Margaret Sanger was anti-marriage and anti-education?
No, I am
with
asserting
the contraceptions, right? She was just contraception and abortion only. Are you further explain it? That's my question, though.
I am asserting, and I have proven, that Margaret Sanger was a eugenicist, and you agree that Margaret Sanger was a eugenicist. And as an extension of the coming from the vantage point of a white female and a position of privilege, Margaret Sanger was also a racist. Now, was W.E.B. Du Bois a racist? I would say no, but he was a eugenicist. So I'm not saying that all eugenicists are racist. I'm saying that Margaret Sanger was a eugenicist and a racist. That she partnered with rich white folks to gain funding, and using language and terminology such as Planned Parenthood and women health, but yet still she focused and targeted her effort on specific groups of people, particularly minorities and particularly Black people. So yes, saying that there has been an agenda to marginalize and limit the numbers of Black people, that seemed like this is so strange. Like if America, like this is something new in America, and this is something new globally. No, you can look to the Nazi Party. You can look at historically, these things have happened. So what I'm saying is that we both agree that Margaret Sanger is a eugenicist. I'm just taking the extra step. I'm taking that other, making that extra step and saying that she was also a racist. That her goal was to limit the number of Black children being born, and that way also we won't become a political and socioeconomic, a greater political and socioeconomic force to be reckoned with. And this is also the goal of a lot of people here in America still today. So that's what I'm saying. That's my argument.
Okay, Brother Steve. This is my final question right here. Do you think putting the abortions in the hands of the physicians is better than what it was before she put it Planned Parenthood, right? Where the physicians had to could treat the women, right? Or whether they want to have abortion or not, right? Another thing, do you think it's better to go back to that before, well, with the back alley abortions, or do you think Planned Parenthood, the physicians should have the say so over it, right?
Okay, I'm not proposing turning back the hands of time and going back to the 1920s and the 1930s. That's not what I'm advocating. What I'm advocating is us having dialogue, us sharing information just like we're sharing information today. Some of our information collided in the sense that we're saying similar things, but yet still our audience is learning. But more specifically, the data saying that we abort 500,000 fetuses per year. And then what is that tissue used for? This is not a solution. The solution that I'm proposing is definitely education. And also us attempting to take on an alternative set of values, where it's not wrong to have two parents in the household. And when we work together as males and females in raising our children, then there is more of a likelihood of us addressing and working together to solve our educational as well as our socioeconomic needs. That we should be working together as a community. And yes, the woman should have rights to access. Yes, she should have rights to visit a doctor. And, if she chooses to abort her child in that environment, fine. But let it not be her first choice. Let it not be her primary choice. Let it also be with the consent of the father. I am fully in favor of strengthening the Black family. And if they both decide, well, then this is viable, well, this is what they want to do, so be it. That's not what I'm advocating. I'm advocating education, working together, and greater socioeconomics, and access to the levers of power and the levers of change, whether through voting, whether through our numbers, because our population, as Sean says, our population really ain't growing. And we should be increasing our numbers here in America. We really should be.
All right. Well, thank you, Brother Steve, for answering my questions. That's EMAC, Denise.
Yes, sir.
Y'all done.
Okay, I'm reloaded.
All right, we reloaded now. All right, folks. Now we got the votes in, and from what I'm seeing from the vote, for the people's vote, I see the winner, Craige Ratchet Craige.
Ratchet Craige.
Man.
Ratchet
Look at me,
Craige.
man. I must paid a couple of people off. But yeah, Steve, I paid some
Congratulations,
people off,
Ratchet.
Steve. I did it. Thank you, Steve, man. You know what I'm saying? I wish I could have elaborated more, and maybe we could have the discussion. We could share notes and, you know, kind of elaborate on this, right? Because it do matter, right? I think it's a lot of myth and dispels that we need to get through with this abortion, because I think it kind of hinder us. From I think it keep us from being good families, man, and we anti-abortion to me. I just think it keep us from building these relationships with these families, these unwanted babies, man, that people be having. Like we need to start, you know, having these babies we want. If we go against abortion, we're gonna have a lot of unwanted babies. So I think that we need to elaborate on the discussion more, man, because it affects us today. And I'm glad that we did something different outside of religion, Kemet versus Hebrew. And I thank you,
Absolutely.
Brother Steve.
Absolutely. But again, I'm not anti-abortion. In the sense of aborting children just to have the tissue used for vaccines and experiments, yes, I'm against that. But I'm in favor of strengthening the Black family, and that men and women coming together and working as a unit, and then, you know, making decisions whether or not we want to have this child, and if we do have this child, how are we going to raise this child. And I will say again that it is not so strange to think that Margaret Sanger was a eugenicist and she was also a racist, because you have people who are racist, and Margaret Sanger was one of them.
Denise, Emac, where y'all at?
All right.
Emac to close out.
Yes. All right. So this is Information Age. This is Immaculate. You can catch us on Universal Discussion as well. Ratchet Craige, any way they can get a hold of you? You want before we close out?
Man, you can catch me in your local bed chats. I have a YouTube channel that I'm trying to launch up the whole fucking show. Also, you know, Craige Scruggs on Facebook, Facts Over Fairy Tale, the Facebook group and the business page. And trolling people on their YouTube accounts and stuff like that, getting on the panel, starting the little stuff. I'm gonna get some great shit started.
All right then. All right, shout out to Irie, and we out. And
Thanks for hosting. And Steve, everybody to meet you.
Steve, you want to say
promote your book, Steve?
Oh, yeah, thank you very much, Denise and Ratchet and everyone. So my book is The Third Coming of Spiritual Liberation. It's available on Amazon. If you want to learn about an alternative, well, it's a contrast of ancient traditional lifestyle as opposed to how we live today. That's how come I talk so much about traditional values. You can purchase my book on Amazon. It's called The Third Coming of Spiritual Liberation by Kemal Haitep. And thank you very much. And it was my pleasure. I'm also in the back chats. I live in the back chats.
Okay, guys. We're out.
Peace.
Okay, take care.